Welcome to Under the Hood with Dr. Alex and Dr. Rebecca,
where we share pearls of wisdom from our 30 years of combined clinical experience. Hello.
Hello.
Okay, so this is a tricky one, very uncomfortable to face your own flaws. But the topic today is, how do we fight?
Mm-hmm.
And maybe ideally, how can we fight better?
Mm-hmm.
Asking for a friend. So I want to know the rules of fighting.
You did bring up this as a topic.
This was my
really
idea.
Wanted to cover.
So because I've been told that I might be a bit of a punching bag, or sometimes like my husband has said he feels like my punching bag. So obviously there's work to be done here. And so I would love to hear from you as the expert, being a couples therapist yourself, if there are kind of some, you know how the Gottmans do the 4 horsemen or whatever, just if there's some issues that we should try and avoid if we can with fighting, and then maybe some advice.
Okay. Yes, absolutely. Well, so first of all, I think the Gottmans do a really good job of taking things that are pretty complex and making them like very easy to understand and like digestible. So I would say that I can tell you what I think that people often do wrong.
Yes, that's
and
what I
maybe
wanna hear.
We can go from there. Okay.
Perfect.
So first of all, I think that one of the things that people do the most wrong is that they take things personally.
Okay.
So when we're in conflict, a lot of times, well, I would say almost all the time, the conflict is between 2 different perspectives.
I see. Okay. That's why earlier you said it doesn't actually matter what people are fighting about.
Not really. I mean, it does, I'm not going to dismiss content entirely.
Yeah.
Some content is more important than others.
Okay.
But you and I both know, and I think everybody who's listening knows that, some of the worst arguments might be over something like tone of voice. You said this thing and you said it in this way, and then your partner's like, "What are you talking about? I didn't." Yes, you did. No, you didn't.
Totally.
And then it
feels like disrespect, essentially. I remember, a big fight that we had. I just felt that the tone was so disrespectful that I was not going to tolerate that. And I was literally packing up the kids to leave. And Paul was like, "Wait, what happened? Like, are you serious? What's going on right now?" And in his mind, he was just being sarcastic and funny.
Yeah.
And joking.
Right.
And I was furious to the point of leaving.
Yeah. Well, okay. So I have to wonder if he might have also sometimes, when the tone lands wrong, it's because we're trying to say something, but we're saying it incorrectly.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
So there might have been.
Yeah. I think there was some truth to it, which is what really
pissed you off. Yeah. Okay. So yes. So I think that something like a tone of voice can set off a huge fight. But and I think sometimes when we have those huge fights over like nothing.
Yeah.
After an hour of fighting about a tone of voice, you start to devolve into, I know this is important, but I don't know why. And it's so stupid that we're talking about, but it feels essential.
Yeah.
So, one of the biggest skills in healthy communication, whether it's between partners or business partners or, whoever, is differentiation.
I see. Okay. What does that mean?
So it's a sort of a fancy way of saying perspective taking.
Okay.
So it's wrapped up in empathy. So if you tell me something, if there's 2 of us and we are in a situation, we are going to have 2 very different perspectives. Sometimes we might have a similar perspective, but especially when there's a conflict, we may have very different perspectives. And an example of that might be something like, you used this tone of voice and Paul is like, "No, I really didn't." Or I didn't mean it that way or whatever. But your perspective is so valid.
Right.
Yeah, you were hurt by the tone of voice. It felt disrespectful. And so if we can start to think about our partner's perspective as being equally valid and letting go of the need to be right. So that's one of the things that's
so hard.
It's really hard. I know. It's super hard. And I think a lot of times people don't actually want to do it.
No, I don't want to do it.
No, I know.
Letting go of the need to be right? Are you kidding me?
Yeah, I know. I had a professor in college who used to say, you can either be right or you can be married.
I've heard that before.
Yeah, I know.
Miraculously, I'm still married.
Well, maybe it's because you're always right.
I think that might be it.
No, but I mean, I do think that you don't have to let go of the need to be right, because if you were to say, "Okay, I'm not right," and your partner is still wanting to be right, then you're in a situation where one person's right and one person's wrong, which means one person's winning and one person's losing,
Yeah,
which is
yeah.
tough.
Totally.
So you really shifting into the idea that we're both right,
Yeah, okay.
the assumption that we're both right, the assumption that I'm married to somebody who, or I'm with somebody who is, a good person, who is a loving person, who's not intentionally trying to hurt me,
Mhm.
which I don't think I ever have really worked with anybody who is intentionally causing harm.
No.
Maybe in the middle of a big fight when, you know, the
Yeah. You're
things
feeling
are
pain and
very,
you want them to feel the same pain you're feeling.
yeah, then we can get a little spiteful, but by and large, people are not trying to hurt each
Mm.
other.
Yep, okay. And so really it's assuming positive intent or just assuming that the person
Yeah.
is actually coming from a good place and does care about you. You talk about that in your book and it
Mhm.
was really helpful for me to read that.
Yeah. So if we assume positive intent, and we assume that even though our partner's words, actions
Mm,
are inconceivable to us and hurtful,
mhm,
they do have a good reason, that
mhm.
we could make sense of them
I
if
see.
we understand what their perspective is.
Because we're coming from different perspectives. Isn't that the case with communication in general? Is
Yeah.
that there's all these things between the lines that we think the other person knows and then they don't.
Mhm.
And it's confusing when they don't
Yeah,
because
exactly.
we come from completely different perspectives.
We do. And so if we assume that their perspective is valid, like if we just go in with the assumption,
Interesting.
your perspective is valid, you don't have to agree with it. I mean,
Yes, I
there's
see.
plenty of perspectives
Right,
that
right,
you
right,
may
right. Totally.
not
Okay.
agree with, but
Yep.
if we can start to come from a place of curiosity.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, sometimes I pretend that I'm coming from a place of curiosity,
Yeah,
and then I
I get that.
realize too late that I actually am not curious. I'm just trying to convince you of my
Yeah.
own.
It's like if I can understand your perspective better, then maybe
I
I
can
can use
convince
your
you.
words
Yeah, yeah.
against you.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Mhm.
manipulate you
Yeah, yeah,
into
yeah,
thinking
exactly.
I'm right.
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, I think we all do that.
Okay.
Yeah, for
Oh
sure.
god,
Yeah, yeah. I mean, that's a
another
very
monster.
human. Well, we want, if we're right, then we're valid,
Yeah,
and
right.
we want to be valid.
Totally.
And so if we can start to shift into the perspective of you're already valid, I don't understand you necessarily,
Mhm.
and that's causing some conflict, but if we can come with curiosity. So I think the other thing that is often a pitfall is that people want to get understood in the same conversation.
I see.
So this would be like I tell you, you didn't take the trash out, and not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, but it really made me feel very unsupported. And what would be very validating is if my partner were to say, "Oh man, I get that. I'm so sorry.
Mm,
Of course I didn't mean to make you
right,
feel that
instead
way.
of being
I'm so
super
sorry you
defensive,
felt that
yeah.
way." Yeah. But of course, we want to defend ourselves. We want
Mhm.
our perspective to be known as well. So, a more probably human response might have been, "Well, I had a really busy morning. Like I can't believe that you would feel unsupported. I do so much else for you."
That's defensive, right?
That's more
Mhm.
defensive.
Yeah.
And it also is adding in your perspective.
Mhm.
So a lot of times we say, "Well, I hear you, but,"
Yeah,
or we respond to a person's perspective by giving our own perspective.
I see. That is so true because then you feel like the person's not even listening to you
That's right.
because they immediately come back with their own thing
That's right.
and you're saying, "Okay, wait a second.
Did
Were
you
you
even hear
just
me?
waiting to interject?"
Yes.
Yeah. Did you even
So
actually listen to the words I was saying
yes.
and take them in?
Right. So the difference there between listening and waiting for your turn to talk
Mm,
is a huge one,
and it's
and
apparent. It's so
it's
apparent.
so apparent. And so when you get into that cycle where you've come to your partner and you've brought up something that's important to you, and then they respond with their perspective, you're like, "Well, I don't even know if you heard me." Or maybe they respond to a piece of it. Like
Yeah.
they're like, "Yeah, yeah, 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 I get all of that." And then I'm going to just respond to the piece I don't agree with. That I think is
Mm,
also something
yeah.
that people do a
Whereas
lot.
instead validating the parts that you can get behind.
Right.
What about is there a way to bring this to a partner's attention? Because I was literally talking about this with a patient this week, and she was saying how her husband would kind of just immediately become defensive and
Mhm.
and shut down
Mhm.
basically. So is there a way to sort of broach this either maybe when you're not in a fight, or is there a way to bring this up with somebody who, if the partner feels like their partner is doing this?
Mhm. Well, I think probably most people are gonna feel like their partner gets
Mm,
defensive or they themselves get defensive.
yeah.
Um, Defensiveness usually comes from shame.
Yeah.
It usually comes from feeling like you're not doing something well enough
Yeah.
or you're letting someone that you really care about down. So sometimes it can be helpful to change your approach a little bit. So
Mm.
sometimes saying, you
Instead
know,
of less accusatory,
less
more.
accusatory, to come in softer. So the
Mhm.
softening the approach can help a lot. You know, if you do have open communication, it can sometimes also be helpful to say, you know, I know sometimes when you bring things up to me, I get really defensive and I often feel like you get defensive as well and then we start fighting.
Interesting, because then they're recognizing that you also do it, which I'm sure they think that. So
That can be helpful. Yeah,
yeah,
exactly. And
okay.
you probably are. I
Yeah,
mean,
for sure.
there's not a
Yeah,
human
yeah,
alive
yeah,
who's like, I
definitely.
never get defensive,
Yeah,
you
right.
know?
Mhm.
Um, And so maybe asking your partner in like a calmer moment, well, if I do need to bring something up, what would help you to get less defensive? How can I help you to not be defensive? I know, like, because we don't really want to be defensive,
No,
but it's a
we're
little bit of
triggered,
an,
yeah.
yeah, we're triggered and then we get defensive.
Mhm.
So I think that that can be sometimes, but also softening the approach. So instead of saying like coming in hot,
Yeah.
I can't believe you didn't take out the trash.
Mhm.
It's like, well, what would it be like to take a breath, go slow.
I know you had a
I
really
love you
busy
so
day.
much.
Yeah,
I know you had a really busy
yeah,
day. This really, in the grand scheme of things, isn't a
not
big
a big deal.
deal. But I wonder if you have a little bit of bandwidth to hear something that, you know, kind of hurt my feelings.
Mhm.
So sometimes setting it up a little bit more
Mm,
gently and going in gently can really help your partner to stay out of defensiveness.
yeah, this is so interesting because I thought you were gonna be like, "Don't name call," when we were planning this episode.
Well, definitely don't name call. I mean, name calling is really abusive
Hurtful, yeah.
behavior.
Mhm.
Yeah. I mean, so there, and I don't mean to say that if there's name calling in your relationship, it's an abusive relationship.
Right.
But in a relationship, you know, certainly there are abusive relationships.
Mhm.
Those relationships tend to be where one person is all about power and control.
Mm.
Abusive behavior is about power and
Yeah, right,
control.
totally.
And we all want power and control.
Mhm.
You know, if you feel like you want, you know, to control the narrative or something, doesn't mean that you're an abusive person
No.
or that you're in an
Yeah, I
abusive
get what you're
relationship.
saying.
But there are behaviors that are abusive behaviors,
Right.
and name calling is one of
Yeah,
them.
definitely. Okay.
Swearing at somebody,
Yeah, totally.
you know, I mean, and I think that humans do this
Mhm.
sometimes. But when you find yourself doing some of those like
Take a
very
break. Yeah.
unrelational behaviors, name calling, shaming, you know, anything that would be like sort of is scary, like
Yeah.
slamming doors or
Yeah,
throwing
yelling.
something,
Mhm.
yelling, that kind of stuff, that is all damaging to the
It
relationship.
is,
Yeah.
absolutely.
And probably requires repair
Mhm.
afterwards.
And so would you say at that point you need to take a break?
Yeah, I would say if you get to the point where you have, that level of sort of arousal
Sympathetic,
in your
yeah. Mhm.
system, that you just need to take a break.
Yep.
Um, and so
Until I read your book, I was really against that, what you were saying
you're taking a
earlier
break.
about being in the conversation until it's resolved. I'm just a person that likes to work through it until the solution is
Yeah,
presented. And so
fellow
then
pursuer.
yeah, yeah, pursuer.
Yeah.
And then when I read that the that we're pursuers, the partner could
Yeah.
be just flooded and overwhelmed and just genuinely needs
Mhm.
to pause for their own well-being,
Mhm.
I felt a lot more compassionate towards that option
Yeah.
and have done that since discovering that in your
Yeah.
book because I do feel like, oh, okay, they actually don't have the capacity
Mhm.
to continue to have a productive conversation. They're completely overwhelmed. They're not talking
Mhm.
because they don't care. They're they've stopped talking because they genuinely can't and they care so deeply.
Yeah, oh, that's one of the, 4 horsemen, stonewalling.
Oh, stonewalling.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But yes, that is true, that getting our system flooded, but, you know, system flooded looks different for different people.
Totally.
So as a pursuer, a fellow pursuer,
Hmm.
um, when I'm flooded, I really struggle to take a break and to walk away. I'm like, we gotta
Definitely.
iron this out. We
Oh,
have gotta hash this out. We are gonna stay with this. But I'm flooded. I'm
yeah.
not at my
Yeah, because it feels
best. I'm
unsafe to
frustrated.
stop. It feels like
It
we can't
does.
stop until we get
There's
out
an
of this.
urgency,
Yeah.
a crisis,
Mhm.
really we need to sort of hash it out. And so that's actually also a flooded nervous system state, which is not showing us at our best either. And so
So interesting.
people who have pursuing tendencies tend to be a little bit more on the sort of anxious attachment.
Yeah.
So they may really, this like really wanting to make sure that the relationship is okay, make sure that they're heard, make sure that they're validated by their partner, and there's an urgency there. And people who tend to be withdrawing in relationships tend to have a little bit more of an avoidant attachment style. And so they may want to not only do they want to take space, they may never want to have any conflict at all
Yes.
because
Oh,
conflict feels very unsafe.
totally. I mean, I can tell you, he would just avoid it completely. He would just pretend
Yeah.
it never happened and move right along because that's what, and to me, it's like, that's not a healthy.
Well, it's not, but neither is the crisis
No, no,
mindset either.
definitely.
And so, when you have a relationship, the most common configuration of those sorts of, if we're talking in this framework, which is an emotionally focused therapy framework, the pursuer and the withdrawer. Also, Terry Real talks about this. This is sort of the core of his framework as
Okay.
well, but he calls it the more, the more. So the more I, the more you. But when we're talking about this, we actually, in order to come more into the center with each other, because if you have one person who's constantly pursuing,
Yeah.
who's constantly bringing up things, their partner then is going to withdraw even more in response, which means they then are going to have to pursue more. And so the withdrawing partner, their job actually, they might need to ask to take a break. So first of all, asking to take a break would be new probably for a lot of withdrawing partners. They
Yes.
might just shut down.
Totally.
But to say, I'm feeling really overwhelmed, can we take a break?
Yeah.
That would probably be a new move.
Mhm.
It's a little bit pursuey,
Yeah.
to
Yeah,
ask
yeah,
for
yeah,
something that you need,
which Paul has done, and it actually completely diffuses the situation.
which is great.
It's incredible.
It's
It's like,
incredible.
"Oh,"
Yep.
he's like, "Let's take 20 minutes."
Because that gives you something. He's
Totally.
coming out. He's saying, I
Yeah.
want to talk about this with you, but let's take 20 minutes.
Yeah.
And I love that example as well, because a lot of times what the withdrawing partner does is they withdraw, they shut down, and then they're never seen again.
Totally.
It's like they never bring it up again.
Yeah,
And
like it
then
never happened.
it never happened. And that makes their pursuing partner feel so unsafe.
Yes.
Like they are the one who has to
Mhm.
bring it up. So, but the pursuing partner needs to be willing to accept the break, willing to say to themselves, okay, I need a break.
Yeah, well, I think the only reason that I'm willing to do that now is because I understand these frameworks more than I
Right.
ever did before. Now that I understand that there's a pursuer and a withdrawer, which is obviously oversimplifying it, it just makes so much more sense to me.
It does. Yeah.
And I feel like I just needed that information to know that, oh, there actually is a framework in which you can fight in a
Hmm.
healthier way
Hmm.
that doesn't damage the relationship at its core.
Right.
And obviously, of course, we wish we could never fight, but that's just not realistic.
No, it's
And
not
so
realistic. We have
now
to
we
be
just
able to
try and
have
be
conflict.
respectful in our conflict.
Hmm.
Yeah, which thankfully neither of us were ever really big name callers. Although sometimes I would say, you're acting like a jerk.
Hmm. Hmm.
In my mind, that means I know you're not a jerk, but he doesn't differentiate between the
Yeah.
two.
But I bet that is different. Acting like a jerk, you're talking about behavior
Yeah,
instead
versus
of,
you are
yeah, yeah,
a,
yeah, yeah.
but to
It's
him, it's
better,
just
but
semantics.
yeah,
Yeah, which
lands the same way.
yeah, yeah, I
Yeah,
get
yeah.
it. I get it.
So that the pursuer and the withdrawer, they get stuck in what's called the cycle. So
Okay.
it's that co-create. This is why the
Mhm.
content doesn't matter so much
Yeah.
because we get stuck together in this same way where we both have sort of desperate needs to
Yeah.
be heard or to be understood. And the cycle is co-created. So the more I pursue, the more you withdraw. And
Mhm.
we push each other further and further away. So it's not, it's if you didn't have a withdrawing partner, if you went to somebody and you said, hey, you didn't take the trash out and it sort of made me feel, a little unsupported. And your partner was able to say, oh, babe, I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry you felt that way. That must have been terrible. That must have been a really bad way to start your day.
Mhm.
I'm so sorry that I contributed to that.
Yeah, feels
Then
lovely.
Lovely.
I think that's easier to do when you already have a lot of the good feelings there
That's
already,
right.
right? It's like when your cup is already full with the love, then it's so much
Mhm,
easier. And people talk about this a lot in the context of intimacy
mhm,
is how can you expect me to have these warm, fuzzy feelings for you after all day you
mhm,
XYZ,
mhm.
and then you just expect me to have sex? Like,
Yeah,
what?
yeah.
You know, which is challenging. It's
Mhm,
tricky.
mhm. It is tricky, and I would also say that probably, again, different perspectives.
Different perspectives,
Different
clearly,
perspectives, clearly,
clearly.
that if your sex life is generally pleasurable and you did have sex at the end of a long day and you're feeling super disconnected, you probably would feel
More
more
connected,
connected
right.
afterwards. So it's not like that's the wrong perspective, but when we get into this battle of, "No, I need this. No, I need this," and then it feels like impossible for anybody to get their needs met.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah,
Well, and I could see somebody that isn't as comfortable with the verbal skills, they would try and use something physical, if that's what they're more comfortable
of
with,
course.
to repair.
Yeah, and those are sort of different styles of
Yeah.
wanting to connect, which
Mm.
way wanting to connect first. And certainly sex is something that people fight about all the time. I mean, it's
Yeah.
an area of content that people often fight about.
Well, and it's so fraught, because they're
Yeah,
your feelings. It's a very vulnerable act. So your
right.
feelings are really sensitive, I think, around that topic anyway.
Yeah, and we don't know how to talk about it, which is another one of our episodes. So we
Yeah.
won't get too into that
No.
now, but we in addition to not always knowing how to handle conflict because, in a relationship the cycle of rupture and repair is inevitable.
Yeah.
But well, rupture is inevitable.
Mm. And then how do you repair?
Yeah, so rupture is gonna be inevitable because
Hmm.
you're 2 people or more people, and you have different perspectives, and
Yeah.
so you're going to rupture. You're gonna rupture with your children, you're gonna rupture with your partner, and
It
but
feels so much easier to repair with my kids than it does with my spouse for some reason.
yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, we
Mhm.
say, "Yeah, okay, it's our responsibility to repair
Yeah,
this relationship," or
totally.
whatever, and I think that with kids now, the way that we parent, most people are comfortable with the cycle of rupture and
Hmm.
repair. They just know
That that's healthy for the
that
kids.
that's
Yeah.
healthy for the kids, but,
That's new information.
that's
Yeah.
newer. I think when we were growing up, and certainly with older generations, the parents didn't repair.
No.
It would have been giving away power to
Yeah.
repair, and I think that we often feel that way in our intimate partnerships, is that if we repair, we give away power.
Mm.
But it's
Interesting.
it's not. I mean, we
Yeah.
really need to. The repair is what brings us closer. The
Yeah.
repair is what gets us intimacy. The repair is what gets us connection.
Mhm.
And so we need to be able to swallow our pride and be willing to repair. But in order to truly repair, I could say, "Well, I'm sorry I didn't take out the trash. I guess that was super big deal." It's like, okay, that's
Yeah.
not repair.
Not at all.
Not at all. So tone matters, intention matters, being able to see perspective. So if I'm going to repair for taking out the trash, I need to be able to see my person's perspective
Yeah,
in addition to my own. It
totally.
was a crazy morning and like I should be able to just not take out the trash and not have that be a big deal. Like
Mhm.
fair. That is a fair perspective. But when your partner comes to you with something that hurt them,
Mm.
instead of thinking about what you did or didn't do to hurt them, whether it's fair or not for them to be hurt by that, whether you deserve the criticism of having hurt them, if you focus on how they felt,
Then it's much easier.
much easier.
Mhm. Much easier to feel bad because you love them so much.
Of course.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And you would never want them to feel that
You'd
way.
never want them to feel that way. And
Yeah, so it
that's
almost hurts worse because 'cause you're the one who
it
caused it.
does.
Yeah.
And so in order to really repair, we also have to be able to tolerate. That's the thing about
Mm.
defensiveness and shame
Yes.
is so when your partner comes to you and they say, "I felt hurt when you did this," it's much easier to go into like, "What the fuck? It's just taking out the trash."
Mhm.
And I do all
But it
kinds of other
represents
stuff.
something else,
Yeah.
obviously. It's not about the trash per se.
No, it's not about the trash per se. And so
That's so
when
obvious to
yeah,
us.
right.
Mhm.
But in order to really fully repair, you have to be able to feel and tolerate the fact that you hurt your partner
Mhm.
and that you can't take away that hurt. It's
Yeah.
already done. The only thing you can do is to repair,
Genuinely repair.
genuinely repair by perspective taking. And I would say the other thing that people often get wrong, which, we've talked around, but in these conversations, we want to get heard at the same time
Mm.
in order to repair.
Yes. Okay, Paul and I have discussed this. We've said, "Listen, I really this is my turn, and then I am gonna give you a turn as well.
Yep.
And so we've actually framed it that way. Like, you're gonna have a turn and I'm gonna have a turn. We're both actually gonna give each other
Yes.
a quiet turn.
Yes.
Yeah.
And sometimes it can even be helpful to set a timer. Like,
Mhm.
literally be like, "Okay, for this 5 minutes,
Yeah.
I am, like, your defense attorney. I am trying to truly understand this
Interesting.
from
I've never thought
your
about it like that.
perspective,"
Yeah.
as opposed to a prosecutor, you know?
Totally.
But it also a lot of times it's hard to do
It's too heated. It's already
within one interaction.
Yeah, yeah.
You know, sometimes you really just have to kind of bite your tongue and really show up for your partner's perspective and just truly validate that and then be able to hold your perspective, and maybe you have an agreement together. Okay, I know you have a perspective that didn't get heard. Let's take a break, reset, and then we'll come back and it's your turn.
Mm.
So I love that you guys are already doing, I mean, that's already
Mhm.
so much of the battle, is being able to take a break, being able to acknowledge what you're doing, sort of having a little bit of a structure around the argument
Yeah.
so that it doesn't just, it's
Devolve.
less likely to devolve.
Yeah, because it's so easy for that to just
Oh my
fly
gosh.
off the handle.
Oh my gosh, yes. And then recognizing if it's flat, if it does devolve, recognizing, okay, we're both equally stuck here.
Mhm.
I can't help you, you can't help me. We're really stuck. Let's
Totally.
take 20 minutes
Mhm.
or 30 minutes.
Yeah, or even longer, but just to
Even
say
longer,
that there's
yeah.
at least from my perspective, it's helpful to have some sort of time frame, because just the stopping with no plan to resume is obviously, like you said, too vulnerable and scary.
Yeah,
And
exactly. That's what makes a pursuer feel unsafe.
yeah, exactly.
So being able to say, we'll come back in 20 or 30 minutes. I would say anything less than 20 minutes, you're just going to go probably right back into the cycle.
Totally. Oh,
Yeah.
good to know. Interesting. Yeah.
You need that long for your nervous
Yeah.
system to.
We have even the whole, like, don't go to bed angry. We have decided that we're going to talk about it the next day, or
Yeah.
made a time.
Yep.
But for me, it's fine as long as we have a time that we've designated.
Yeah.
It's good.
Yeah. Yeah, and I know that don't go to bed angry, but, like, also don't stay up till 3 AM fighting.
Completely. Yeah, we have
That's
lives and we
worse.
have kids.
Yeah, exactly.
Totally. Yeah, we have responsibilities.
Right.
We have to just be able to.
Right. I would say that typically if you're gonna leave something for the next day, it can be helpful to have, like, "I love you. We're gonna talk through this tomorrow." Like, a
Totally.
little bit of a repair, "Man, we're really both stuck here.
Yeah.
I know we're both hurt. We love each other. We're gonna pick this back up." Like,
Yeah.
being intentional about it
Mhm.
can really help to calm it down in order
To have, like, a
to have
productive
a productive
conversation the next
conversation
day.
the next day, yeah.
Fantastic. Wow. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for listening to Under the Hood. We hope you enjoyed this episode.
Please like, share, and subscribe.